Greetings on this beautiful day here in lovely Florida. It's certainly a warm day in August, and we are so excited that we have this opportunity. I want you all to think about the fact that come December, come January, come February, it's probably going to be a little chilly, and we'll start treasuring the fact that we want it to warm up. So even though it's hot, and I'm talking about seriously hot, like 100 and what they're saying, somewhere between feels like temperature between 105 and 113 in the area, it's okay. We're going to make it through. Thank God for air conditioning and for the man that invented it. Hi, everyone. This is Hubert Grimes. I'm here on The Judge Speaks. We are so excited that we have an opportunity to be with you once again. Certainly, we are doing a simulcast. First of all, at Joy 106.3 FM, and of course that you can reach not only on the regular FM channels, you can reach it through TuneIn radio app, you can reach it through the website of joy106.3.com, but also we're here today live on Facebook. And so for many of my friends that may be tuning in, both locally, statewide, and even beyond, what's going on? How y'all doing? Glad that you're with us and taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of this team. I've got an exciting guest for you today. I know you're going to enjoy listening to her. My theme, my hope is that you will always come away from this program with more information than what you had before. I'm reminded of the words of a great mentor and friend of mine that's gone on to be with the Lord. He used to always tell us, he said every day, he said, never go to bed as ignorant as you were when you got up this morning. Every day you ought to learn something new. So our goal here on The Judge Speaks is to make sure that we comply with that we share some information with you that's going to help you to become a better version of yourself. Going to do a little writing that I did a little while back because I really believe that education is the key to being and staying free. And then after that, I'm going to bring on our very special guest today, and you'll understand why I'm using my regular phrase that education is the key to being and staying free. You see, life has a way of bringing out challenges that one can only call special. Now, work with me for a moment. You see, a story is told in the scriptures of a young man who was one of 12 brothers. He could be mischievous, but truly loved his brothers. He shared a dream that he described where all of his brothers, young and old, bowed down to him. They got mad, sounds like some older brothers, and plotted against him because he had become his dad's favorite. His dad even gave him a beautiful tunic or coat of many colors that always stood out from the crowd. Jealousy arose up in his brothers, and they plotted against him, even planning on killing him and making like wild animals had done so. But instead, they sold him to a caravan, which took him to another country and made him a slave. Yet, he didn't give up on his dream, but wondered if the dream was real or fake. Maybe it was too much pepperoni pizza. But instead, he kept trying, he kept doing, he kept believing. He still earned respect and actually ended up being brought before the master's house as a lead servant. The master's wife was very attracted to this young man, even to the point that she began to chase after him, hit on him, or even, as we might say, attempt to seduce him. But yet, he never gave in. But she lied on him and got him thrown into prison. And while in prison, he befriended others, including 2 other house servants, and interpreted their dreams. Later, when the king had a troubling dream to which none of his peeps could interpret, someone told them about this young man. He was brought before the king, and he answered what no one else could do. He was ended up as a result of doing what the king needed to have done. The king rewarded him and made him the number 2 person in the kingdom and saved the country from famine. And they made a lot of money from other countries. Later, those same brothers came seeking to buy bread, and he recognized them, but they didn't recognize him. Yet, instead of being jealous, instead of being hostile, instead of being vengeful, he saved them and the rest of his family. including his dad and the new baby brother. What's the moral of the story? Neither fear, jealousy, treachery, enslavement, lies, or deceit can stop you if you don't stop yourself. Keep grinding, my friends. Keep moving. And I too tell you this day, education is the key to being and staying free. So with that little tidbit that I threw out there for my listeners, I want to welcome to the call a very special lady. I have actually known her for over 20 years. She, of course, she is a graduate of Bethune-Cookman University, and I think we my wife and I adopted her just like she adopted us. You know, it was a mutual thing going back and forth. And we have watched her grow and progress in her career. She is a professional educator, lifelong educator. And she launched out into the deep, grinding in a elementary school classroom in Flagler County, and then moving up the ranks from teacher to she has several titles. I'll probably mess them up if I try to call them out, so I'm going to reserve that for her. But I can tell you now that she's at the top of her game, but I still believe that there's even higher heights for her to go. But at the top of her game, she serves as the superintendent of schools for the Flagler County School District. And so I want to welcome to the Judge Speaks none other than Mrs. LaShakia Moore, soon to be
Dr.
LaShakia Moore. So I am so excited that she could work into her busy schedule a visit here with us today. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here and having this conversation with you and the listeners. So thank you for the opportunity.
All right. So those of you that are out there in the listening world, some of you can hear a voice and you know that's an awesome voice. She's got one of those persuasive voices. God gifted her with that. Those of you that are watching from Facebook, you say, hey, she's easy on the eyes to look at too. So I'm just grateful that she could work us into her schedule. But let's go back and talk about your journey, because there are people out there listening who may have an idea of something. They may have a dream, much like the dream I talked about in this reading that I put together, where they may have thought about something that God dropped in their spirit of what they want to become, but they not yet figured it out. But let's talk about your journey, and maybe that can inspire someone out there in our listening audience.
Absolutely. So I'll take it all the way back to when I was in high school. Our high school afforded us opportunities to be a part of different programs. And I started off in the medical program. I was going to go that route. It was something that I was interested in and I loved. But it wasn't until late in my junior year, going into my senior year, that I started to become a little bit interested in education, but not enough to say that's what I wanted to do and be. And it was because people always said, don't go into education. Educators don't make any money. But my passion for education really sparked from my brother. I come from a large family. I have multiple siblings, but I have one brother that really struggled with the basics of school. He was not very successful academically, but he could do so many things with his hands. He could build and fix anything, and I wanted to know a little bit more about that. And it was the educators in my community, educators in my school, that said, don't pursue wealth. Pursue what it is that God has called you to do and be, and if that is education, go after that. And it was the best decision that I've made. I ended up at Bethune-Cookman College at the time, received my education there, my undergraduate. I will tell you, I got such a great start at Bethune-Cookman. If I could do it all over again, I would go right back to Bethune-Cookman, into their School of Education. I was easily gotten a job at the end of it, started my career off in Volusia County, spent a few years in Volusia County, but then transitioned to Flagler County where I lived, and it has been a great decision as well. I've served as a teacher, I have served as a support colleague or an academic coach, an administrator, a district level administrator, assistant superintendent, and now superintendent. So
All right.
it's been a great journey, but it has been a journey that I have loved and enjoyed. Not one day do I recall getting up and dreading going to work. I am happy about going to work and serving our community and serving our students. Education is such a critical thing, and I'm excited to be here to talk to you about it today.
Wow. And you know, in a couple of weeks, we'll
Yes.
start a new season, a new fall term.
Yes, we are less than 10 days out from
Okay.
the start of school, 10 school days out from the start of school, and we are so excited and proud to welcome our students and our families back to the 25-26 school year. It's going to be a great year in Flagler.
And you know, let me go back for maybe about a year or so when you first became superintendent. You initially, of course, was acting superintendent, and then you did such a phenomenal job. These people say, "Wait a minute, hold on, we got our number one candidate right here." But you dealt with some very challenging issues at first. I mean, you kind of walked in. As soon as you walked in, there was this big uproar that hit the news media about school in Bunnell.
Yes.
But the way that you handled that was so powerful because you literally calmed everybody down. You got the people and the students, and I think as you have told us, or you said, is that you think that the intention of the teacher and bringing people in was a good intention, but they did it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And it seems like they were punishing or going after, should I say, singling out some of the, in fact, it was some of the black kids. So here you were as a black teacher, black professional, and now you're being cast into the role of, you got to fix this problem, and everybody looking at you. Can you kind of explain how you fixed that? You solved that problem. I mean, you calmed the district down, you calmed the people down, and you made a point of trying to help kids in the process.
Yeah, I have said, and I will continue to say, that those two educators that were directly impacted were great educators. I do not believe that they were malicious. However, those actions did hurt.
Yeah.
Students. It hurt and impacted our community. And so coming in, the first and foremost thing was for us to identify, how do we begin to get an understanding of this from the family's point of view. And so we began to have conversations with each and every one of those families. We went out into the community. We talked to different members of the community to say, you know what, we identified that this was not okay. We do not deflect that. We're going to address it. We're sorry that this has happened, and here are our path forward. Here's the way that we are going to move forward. And so it took time. We received that was a very difficult time. What I do think helped in that is that I had been in the school district for a number of years, and so the community knew me.
Yes.
Our students and our families knew me, and so they knew what to expect out of me, that I would take the information in, I would investigate what happened, and then I would respond appropriately. And I do think that played a part in our ability to continue to work past that. And unfortunately, that's something that we will have to continue to work past for a number of years, but we do that every day by just showing up with integrity and staying true to what our guiding principles are as an organization. And our guiding principles, and I share this with everyone that I have an opportunity to meet, our guiding principles say children first, right? That's the first one.
Yes.
Before I tell you about any of the other ones, the first one is children first. And that does not mean adults last, but it does mean that every decision that we make, everything that we do, we have to first filter it through, how is this going to impact our students? How does this decision impact our students? And how do we put them first in this? And so that's what we did, and it took us some time, and we will continue to work through it. But I appreciate our community that did get behind me and support me and said that they had confidence in my ability to continue to move the organization forward.
And I said, was it a year ago or was it 2 years ago?
Now it will be 2 years ago coming up in the next couple weeks. It would have been 2
But-
years exactly.
And when you said about children first, I think it's so important because, and you can't say this, but I can say this, because there are a lot of our elected officials that haven't figured that part out. This is my comment, not hers, that they are looking at other concerns which seem to impact kids. And in fact, there's some, even in some elected officials, who seem to be more focused upon trying to, I should say, use kids as a pawn to move things around. I know that that's happening a lot in the political arena, but I will say that these are my words, not her words. So I just want to commend you and celebrate you for the fact that what you've said, and that has become a standard within your work. It's become a standard within the district that you say, hey, children first, kids first. They got to be the focus of our, because all of these kids, I used to tell kids I did a number of years in family court in DeLand and in juvenile court in particular, and I used to tell them that I want them to grow up, I want them to become successful, I want them to get great jobs, I want them to start great businesses, I want them to make a lot of money, because I want them to be able to pay my Social Security. And I know that some people say, oh, that's a little joke, a little, funny here or there, but the reality is that we want our kids to be successful. And so maybe if you could just begin to kind of share with our listeners and our audience, what are some of the things? I mean, we've just come through the summer. Like I said, I know there are ideas that some parents, we had some real curveballs thrown across the country with summer programs and summer education that was kind of suspended for a while. And a number of places were affected, a number of after-school programs were affected. Now, little by little, I guess case by case, we're seeing some of those resources be restored. But what are some of the things you might suggest for parents that they can be doing as we even get ready to wrap up summer in anticipation of the fall? How do you prepare parents? How do you prepare your kids for the fall semester?
Yeah, so a couple of things that I would say for families. One is to follow your school on their social media. Make sure you're going to their website. Make sure you're tuned in to their means of communication. So for us, it is Parent Square. That's how we send out our text messages and calls and those things. Know what the way that your child's school will be communicating and make sure you follow that so you get the current information. Right now, I said that we're less than 10 weekdays away from the start of school. You have to start now by getting into some habits. So let's start getting back into a sleep habit. Let's start getting back into a wake up habit. Like, what is your schedule and your routine that you need to start to get into? I always promote families making sure that their children are engaging in information that is going to help them grow academically. And so making sure you look at resources that are available for that. Read, go online, begin to just get your child into that schedule and routine to get the school year started. And I think the biggest thing for families that I would say is, regardless of where and how your child is being educated, show up for your child.
All right.
Be a part of their education. The state of Florida has given and really promoted parental rights in education. And so we need families to now exercise those rights and really show up and engage and advocate for your child. And one of the things that I actually learned when we were going through the situation in Bunnell, we had a parent who said to me, Miss Moore, we may not be here for every event that the school has, but we are at events within the community. And it really changed the way I thought about that. Because yes, you may be at church, you may be at the ball fields, you may be in a dance studio, all these different places. Wherever you are, show up for your children. Advocate for them, ask questions, be involved in what is happening in their education, because there are now a lot of rights that come with that. I'm sure at some point in this conversation, we're going to talk about choice and the impact of choice in that. And for me, I'll say to families, I appreciate that we have choices, but you got to know what you're looking for in order to know if you found it or not. And so show up for your children, be involved in their education. Education is so critical. And I want to say to the listeners out there that maybe you don't have a child that's in K-12 education right now. Education should be just as important to those who have children in the system and to those who do not have in the system. Education is not just an investment into young people. Education is investments into a community. And so I just say to to the listeners, to stakeholders that are out there who do not have any children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, neighbors in the school system, you should be paying attention to what is happening to education because it is an investment into your community.
One of the things that I became very conscious of when I was serving that role on the bench is the importance of keeping kids busy. And we have used education in so many ways. Some parents don't even realize it, or they seem to think that education is a babysitter. But it's really not a babysitter, because this is how you are fueling your children, or how children in your neighborhood, children across town, are being fueled and prepared for the future. And in other words, we all got an interest in it, as you said.
You have to have an interest in it. And I will tell you that education here in the state of Florida in the last 10 years, even the last 5 years, has changed so drastically. And so what I would say to our community members who do not have children within the school system, find out how you can take a tour of your local schools. See what learning looks like in your local schools. In our community, when we bring individuals out to our schools, they all are like, I thought it looked like what it looked like when I was in school. And that is not the case. One of the things that we're very passionate about in Flagler is what we call Diploma Plus. Other places, they may call it acceleration. However, most community members can't tell you what acceleration means. But when I say to our community that we believe in Diploma Plus, meaning we believe that every single one of our students should graduate from high school with a diploma plus something else. Our community knows that. They know that language. They speak that language. So our vision says that all of our students are going to graduate, and all of our students are going to graduate with the skills necessary for them to reach their maximum potential. Our students are not going to be competitive in the world if they're just graduating with a high school diploma. So in Flagler schools, we are committed to ensuring that our students have an opportunity to graduate with that plus that is going to be meaningful for them. So our students are graduating with certifications. You want to be a fireman? Guess what? We have a fire academy. You want to go into law enforcement? We have law and justice. You want to be a nurse? We have ally health. You want to be an entrepreneur? We have entrepreneur. You want to go into marketing? We got marketing. And so we have these programs, but they're not just electives. These students are graduating with certifications that mean something in the real world. So these are workforce certifications. You want to be a chef? We're having our students graduate with the certification so that they can go and work in that field. So for us, when we talk about Diploma Plus, and it's not just those certifications, it's dual enrollment, it's ACE and IB, and it's AP and military certification if you want to go into the military. For us, it's about saving our families and our students time and money so that they can reach what our mission is, and that is for them to graduate as socially responsible students with the skills necessary for them to reach their maximum potential.
You know, one of the things that was so exciting to me was watching at the mainland graduation, of course. And we had a mutual one that was graduating. And I listened to so many other youngsters who graduated as well. She had graduated with what do we call it? Dual enrollment. So she has an AA degree going into college. So that's 2 years off of not just time, but that's also 2 years of money that will be saved in that process. But I also noticed, like you were saying about the Diploma Plus, and I heard them kept calling off young people with industry certifications. And which means that these kids have already got the ability to like you say, have a job.
Yes, and not only have a job, the workforce that they're going into, some of this workforce pays for certifications for their employees. Well, that now is benefiting the community because this employer does not have to pay for that certification for that young person that's coming in. So industry certifications, Diploma Plus for us is something that we are passionate about. We want all of our students graduating, and we want them all to have their plus. And then I always run into someone that says, well, what about the students that can't? I will tell you, there is a very, very, very small population of students that maybe they have a cognitive disability that doesn't allow for them to pass an industry level certification.
Okay.
Well, that is where we as a community come along and we say, what skills are we going to give that individual that would allow for them to provide benefit to the community as well and serve the community. So in Flagler, what we do is we partner with our local community. We Advent Health, great partner for us. They bring in our young people and they allow them to volunteer in the hospital in many different departments, giving them skills that allow for them to serve the greater community. We have a what we call our Stuff Bus program, and it's the stuff that you find fundamental. We supply that for our students, but do you know who run that entire program is our students with cognitive disabilities. They're the ones that are stocking the warehouse where this stuff is. They're the ones that are delivering it. They're the ones that are processing the requests that come through. It's our students with cognitive disabilities, because guess what? There's a place for everyone.
Yes.
And there's a place for all of our students, and it is our responsibility to help them and work with their families to find where that place is so that they can be productive members of society.
Wow, I love it. I love it. You know, things are changing in our society. I mean, we're constantly hearing things about AI and ChatGPT and all of this, but that's the generation that will will take what has already been developed and expand it and grow it. But yet at the same time, I mean, just last week for me personally, I had a young man that came that fixed my air conditioner, and the company that he worked for was one of those companies that allowed for that same type of training and certification. And it just says to me that we're not publicizing it enough, particularly I'll say down in most of our other counties. Okay, we're not letting people know. In fact, the school system should get credit for it, because you get criticized so much for so many other things, you know, and people think that they always want to attack the school system, or they want to tell the school board how to run its business.
Yes.
And so for those of you that are out there listening, it's so important that you hear what she's saying, because those same kind of programs in Flagler are similar programs that exist.
And they definitely exist here in Volusia County as well. I think for us, it's sharing that and making sure that individuals know what they mean, right? In Flagler, our students are graduating. Those who want to go into HVAC, they're graduating with that. You want to do heavy machinery, you want to drive a truck, whatever it is. And our community is invested in that. The reality of it is, in public school, we offer a lot of different options, and we have to continue to highlight the options that are available to our families, so that our families see and know what they are getting when they are in school with us. But the reality of it is, we are very different from the private. We're very different from other forms of education. And I will tell you, the main difference is the level of accountability that is on the public school. That same level of accountability and transparency is not there for every other area. And this is not me bashing choice. I'm for choice. However, we are very different. And I think our community needs to be aware of that. So I can't speak to the numbers that are in other counties, but in Flagler County, $14 to $17 million are spent with students taking scholarships, which, they're taking that. Well, every dime, everything that I do in the public school system, you as a taxpayer, you have freedom of information. You have access to all of that information. You can request it. We will provide it. We do regular updates to the board. There's transparency there. And I'm just saying, as an educator, as well as a community member, that same transparency is not present for the $14 to $17 million that's being spent on through vouchers and scholarships to students, and our community needs to be aware of that.
Yes, and just as a follow up to that, again, she can't talk about that, but I can. You know, our legislative changes that took place at the encouragement of our governor has, quote unquote, as they say, provided more choices for parents. But and it does allow for every student, if the parents want to, quote unquote, pull the student out of public schools and do homeschooling or private schooling or charter schooling, those three, quote unquote, choices are now made available, and the parents will receive a stipend that previously would have gone to as part of the overall budget for the public schools. Now a portion of that money is being paid over to the parents, and the parents in turn now have the choice. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. So that, but the problem that we got to always be conscious of, as we continue to reduce the financial support for public schools. You see, I'm one that believes that public schools have been the difference makers in our country. When I look back at, and I'll go put my lawyer hat on for a moment, when I go back to 1954 and the Brown versus Board of Education case coming out of the U.S. Supreme Court that allowed for eliminated separate but equal schools, it was a resource issue initially, but because over a period of time, and in Florida it took about 15 more years before things finally sort of, quote unquote, desegregated. But I will tell you that the process of putting black and white, Hispanic, Asian, of us all starting to come together as students, we learned a lot about one another. We learned that there are people that, as I said, that we could trust, even though we know that there was some that we couldn't. And it allowed us to be able, I think, to become a better country because of the influences and the things that were learned as a result of being in a public school setting. And yet now we're sort of going back into what's called, what I would say is like the 60s, where there were these academies that were established to, in fact, prevent their kids from being able to go into public schools because they didn't want to mix in with the black kids. And so these white Christian academies sprung up throughout the South. And yet we saw that the vast majority of people, the vast majority of students were educated in the public school system. And so I believe that the public school education helped us to become more tolerant of one another, to better understand the good, the bad, and the ugly of one another. It helped us to be able to become a better country. And unfortunately right now we're seeing people start to try to go back to a different mindset. And so I say this as my encouragement to my listeners, that even though we are seeing this happen in the public school setting on the state level, that Florida is really pulling resources out of the public schools, that in turn the public schools are going to have to go out and find additional resources. And so parents, you got to be aware of that. Sometimes we're not, as parents, we're not as committed or conscious of what's going on with the overalls, with the legislation that's being approved, that's pulling monies out of our public schools, but supposedly making it available on a case-by-case basis to parents who are making the choices for these other quote-unquote options.
Yeah, I just think for me, what I look at with it is, the choice is great. It's great to have choice, but the accountability to all of those choices look differently. And so if we're looking from the lens of taxpayers, what level of accountability do we want to see and have to all of our tax dollars, right? We know what the level of accountability to the dollars are in the public. Do we not want that same level of transparency and accountability to those other options. I also agree with one of the narratives from the state where it says that they don't feel like a student should be forced to stay into a failing school. I agree with that, right? Students should have options and they should have choices. Students shouldn't have to just be in a school that's failing and underperforming. However, I do also understand that when a parent receives the voucher, the same uses for the dollars that we have to use in the public system, they don't have the same uses in
Yes.
when you have these other choices, right? Most times you're transporting the student in your own personal vehicle. Well, those dollars that when they come to us, it is expected that we transport them, on our school buses and those things. And so that's what I say. It's just be aware. If you're a community member, be aware of what is happening in education. Be it you are for it or you are against it, be informed.
Yes.
And then for the families, again, be it you're making a choice, it's a choice regardless. And I think
Right.
that's the part that really gets me is that the students who are sitting with us and who are going to join us back in the next few days, those families are making a choice as well.
Yes.
And their choice should be honored and respected just like any other choice. So if I choose public, my choice should not be made to seem like my choice is subpar
Right.
to anybody who makes a different one.
Well, building upon that, we know that your school system received a pretty good grade this time around.
Yes, we
Talk
did.
about that for a moment.
Yes, I'm super proud. We have a B rating. We're 2 points away from that A rating. But what I'm most proud of related to that, I've mentioned our vision before, and our vision says that all of our students will graduate, and all of our students will graduate with the skills necessary to reach their maximum potential. We've always had a solid high graduation rate, but when you looked at the data, we had several subgroups of students that were underperforming as identified by the federal percent. So I say to you, if you're listening, I don't care what school you're in, what school district you're in, you have to dig into the data more than just what the grade is. And so for the first time since I remember, probably since the federal government has been collecting this information, for the first time in Flagler schools, our Black and African American students are not underperforming identified by the federal percent, our federal index. We're super proud of that. None of our schools have that designation, and we're happy about that, which means that our students that are Black and African American are also performing like their peers. That's
Good.
important.
Yes.
Being Black or African American is not a disability, and those students should not be underperforming as if they do have some level of disability that will cause them not to perform like non-disabled peers. For the first time, our Hispanic students not underperforming by federal index. Our students that English is their second language, not underperforming. Our students who are lower socioeconomic, not underperforming.
Okay.
And now we have 5 schools that we are within 2 points of for our students with disabilities. So what that is saying is that it's great that we're B. It's great if we were an A, and we've been an A, but we've been an A with underperforming subgroups. And so if our vision says that all of our students are going to graduate with the skills necessary to reach their maximum potential, you got to dig into the data a little bit more and identify that school that you're sitting at or that district that you're sitting in that's an A. Is it an A for all students, or is it just an A for some?
So what's your secret sauce?
Commitment to individual needs, making sure that we are we're teaching the standard, we are doing all of those things that most educators would say, but let's actually review the data. Let's have hard conversations when the data isn't presenting what it is that it should be. And so having those conversations, I will tell you, one of our schools, and I'll send this recording to them, they are a school of excellence, meaning they are performing in the top 80% in the state. They are in the top percents of the state. But they had a subgroup that was underperforming. That was their Black and African American students. And so we had tough conversations. And I went to them and I said, listen, you are a school of excellence, meaning you're in the top 20% in the state of Florida for everybody but your Black kids, because your Black kids are underperforming. And that was hard for them to hear. Right? It's hard for me to say. However, I wouldn't be a good superintendent to them if I just rest in the fact that you're a school of excellence, you're high performing, but the truth is, are you high performing for everyone? And so we had those hard conversations. And I'll tell you, this year when the data came out, that school in that area of Black and African American grew over 30%, and that subgroup of students is now performing at or equivalent to their Black and African American. I could have just let that go. And they still would have been a school of excellence. Right. But now they're a school of excellence, but they're a school of excellence for everybody.
Across the board. Wow. Well, we're going to take a brief pause for the cause, as we always say. You're listening here to The Judge Speaks, and we're going to just to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back with you. Don't go away. We've got more to talk about.
Prima Broadcasting, Inc. is a registered 501c3 nonprofit. This means your donations are 100% tax deductible. The support from listeners just like you is what keep this station on the air. Feel free to visit our website, joy1063fm.com, to donate, or call 386-256-4706 for more ways to give. Thank you for your continued support.
At PC 101 and Tax Right Services, we're here to handle your taxes with expertise. Whether it's this year's taxes or catching up on past years, we've got you covered. Schedule your one-on-one appointment today. Reach us at 386-363-5324. That is 386-363-5324. PC 101 and Tax Right Services, where taxes are done right. With convenient locations in Daytona and Ormond Beach, we make tax time stress-free and simple.
All right, and welcome back to The Judge Speaks. We're here with Mrs. Dr. LaShakia Moore. And why I say that is that she is working. She's not one of these people to sit back on her laurels, and so she is currently working on her doctorate. She should be finished real soon.
Yeah, I just got to stay committed to it.
Yeah, with all the other things that you're doing.
Yes, with all the other things.
She's got family.
Yes.
I mean, she is a family mom.
Yes.
She is that mom that's right there. I was thinking about your daughter, and I won't call her name out on the air, but a very special young lady. She's a volleyball player.
Yeah, she's trying out today for volleyball. Today and tomorrow, volleyball tryout. So
okay, she'll do it. She'll do it. She's involved in a bunch of different activities. So
yes.
She's like all the rest of the car moms. She's bouncing around, making sure that her daughter gets to the various places she needs to do. She's a supportive wife, helping her husband do all the things he's involved in, helping her niece and nephew and her sister. She's the whole package, y'all. She's the whole package. But let's talk for a moment about some of the changes that are coming up with this school year, and if they're going to have any particular effect upon not only your school district, but school districts around the state of Florida. I mean, I knew that they were talking about school days not starting before a certain time in August. I don't even know why that was such a big issue. But then school times, based upon some research that said that kids are not getting enough sleep at night. So have any of those and other legislative changes affected your school district this year?
Yeah, so I'll start with school times. The change this year benefits us, and it benefits us because it pushes it back to where I believe it belongs, and that is with the local officials making a decision about what is best for their community. Okay. And so I agree with the research. I understand it, but we're in a different place because for us, our elementary students, they go later in the day. Our middle and high school, they go earlier in the day. But some of that is because we are a smaller community, for us to be able to run the necessary tiers that it would take for us to get the buses in order to make that change. That will be a huge financial impact. We also are a community that we don't have a lot of sidewalks outside of our main streets, and so our younger students will be standing in the dark on a street without a sidewalk. So I believe that those decisions should be made at the local level, and the local officials should identify what is best for their community and their stakeholders, and so that really benefits us. There's some changes with legislation around safety. I think every school district will tell you that we take safety and security extremely important, and so there have been a few changes with just the hardening of our schools and the infrastructure around gates and when gates should be locked and all of those things, doors locked, single points of entrance. But those are good things to ensure that our students and our employees are in a safe environment. Another big one right now is cell phones. There's the change that says elementary and middle school students, their cell phones must be off and away at all times throughout the day, whereas middle school last year they were able to use them at non-instructional time. Well, now legislation, they're off and away the entire day. That's going to be an adjustment for some of our middle school students, but I do believe that they will rise to the occasion like they always do. And then high school, they will, for us in Flagler, they will be able to use them only in non-instructional time, so pastime, lunch, those types of things. And that is, we already had that policy in place, so that's not a major change for us. The biggest thing will be for middle school. Our elementary students always had theirs off and away, but our middle schools, that will be a difference, that now they cannot have those cell phones during, or let me not call them a cell phone, because it's not just cell phones, it's wireless devices that they cannot have or use during the school day, because they have tablets, they have AirPods, they have watches, they have all those different things. So it's wireless devices that they're unable to have during the school day. That'll be a big lift for some of our middle schoolers, but we'll work through it.
Wow. Now, I didn't give you an opportunity to comment on something that you did. I think this really predated your becoming a superintendent, but it also showed your critical insight and ability to kind of work through problems. I recall a few years ago when there was a big issue with many of these parents around the state pushing for book bans, and it appeared that they were trying to ban everything. Even some people wanted to ban the Bible. So it started and it looked like it was a downhill. It was an avalanche getting ready to happen. But you came up with a very creative way that not only affected and impacted your school district prior to your becoming school superintendent, but you came up with something that is now being literally adopted in multiple counties around the state.
Yes.
Talk about how you were able to solve the problem with book bans.
I think the biggest thing with any conflict that comes is to listen to what is the root problem. I say so. One of the issue was the appropriate resources within the media center as a whole. That was one problem, and so the state identified what was and what was not allowed to be in our media center. And I think most adults would say pornography doesn't belong, right? And so it's first that one, we have to look through what we have in our media centers and ensure that it's in compliance with the law. That was the first thing. And the second thing is everybody wanted to have a choice in the matter. But some parents wanted to choose for all kids, and for what we did in Flagler is we empowered our family. So we talked about parental rights, and we empowered our parents, and we said, parents, you get to make the choice, right? Like you've always been able to, but now let's make this formal. And we put in 3 levels of system. One was that your child has free open access to the media center to be able to select anything that would be age appropriate for them. The second level was that parents would pre-approve anything that their child was selecting out of the media center, and we developed a process in order for our parents to be able to do that, and we had some families that selected that. And then the final one was that the students did not have access to the media center at all. And we kind of played around with how that would look, because most parents didn't want their kids just not to have access to it, but they wanted to make sure that it was appropriate. Right. And the thing is, when we first started doing this, people thought it was going to be about like inappropriate materials. That wasn't really what it was about. We have parents that are like, I don't want my kid to read about dinosaurs, or I don't want my kid to read about owls, or I don't want my kid to read about X, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, we value your right as a parent to make that decision. However, I do not know every book that has an owl in it or whatever. And that may seem extreme, but that's what, what they were wanting. And so let us empower you to be able to see what your child wants. Let's get a system that is seamless, that is not going to single out the kid. Let us put a system in place so that you can then do the research on the book, make sure it's appropriate to whatever you are wanting your child to read about. And then when you approve it, we'll make sure we get it in the hands of our students, because at the end of the day, we want quality literature in the hands of our students, but we want it to be appropriate, and we want to value our parents' right to be a part, be the main decision maker about the content that their kids are exposed to when it comes to things that are not standards based.
Wow. Well, I hope that was helpful to many of you out there that may not have understood how that process works, but similarly to what you created in Flagler.
That's what the state adopted.
Yeah. It is now adopted across the state. And so she doesn't pat herself on the back for that, but it was Dr. Moore that came up with that whole concept and that process and procedure that, one, protects the parents' rights for having involvement, but at the same time, it doesn't destroy the kids' ability to learn and to grow.
And it's about having a system in place that would allow for us to be able to honor the individual rights of all of the parents.
That's right. That's right. Wow. Boy, this time has gone by quickly, and I'm looking at the clock on the wall, and it's telling us that we're getting close to wrap up. So tell us, what are some of your plans for the upcoming year? Anything in particular, both professionally, personally, and what kind of things should parents be looking for in this coming year for across the board?
Yes, for us in Flagler County, we're so excited to welcome our students back on August 11th. We've been preparing all summer. Contrary to what some people think, there are many people that work during the summer.
Yes.
And so we will welcome our teachers, our instructional staff back on Monday, and we're excited for them to be here and be back. What I'm looking forward to, I love having our students in the building. I'm an educator. I'm not a politician. I am an educator. And so what is a school without students, right? It's just a building. And so I am excited to have our students back. We're excited that we have open choice in our district, meaning our families can select whatever school they want their child to go to, and that we have a process that is outlined for that. I'm very proud of that. That was something that our board approved this last year, and that'll be a new change for our students. I want to continue to promote the Diploma Plus model. I want to say to our students that are in 8th grade, gearing up for high school, start to think about what that plus is, start to think about what school you're going to attend based on what the school offers. And then professionally, what I'm very proud of is this year I was accepted into the Leadership Florida cohort, education cohort.
All right.
And so I will be learning alongside many educators across the state in that cohort, and I'm very proud and excited about that. I want to continue to learn and grow and develop as an educator, and that will be an opportunity for me to be able to do it.
And of course, as you do that, you inspire others to do the same.
Exactly.
And that is so powerful. Well, folks, I guess you all have come to the understanding that as we started out today, we said that two things to you. One, that never go to bed as ignorant as you were when you got up this morning. Ignorance is not a slur. Ignorance is, in fact, the absence of knowledge. And in the words of Dr. Matt King Carter, every day you ought to learn something new. So I trust that you have learned something new during our discussion here today. But in addition to that, I also know that education remains the key to being and staying free. We have to understand that and not allow people to tell us that education is not important. There are some people on the federal level, and this is my dialogue, my rant. There are people on the national level who have decided that they want to abolish the Department of Education. Well, in doing so, you're sending a message that education is not important. And yet, There are other things that you seemingly are promoting over education. But I believe, and I truly believe, that none of us have gotten to the places where we are in life without education. So it's starting off in their earliest of days, even before elementary school, kindergarten, preschool, all the way back, even to daycare. And then we must all become lifelong learners. Don't forget to read. Self-promote the idea even after you have graduated, plus your diploma. So I want to encourage those of you that are out there, talk to your kids, encourage them to be more than just caught up in watching their cell phones and looking at TikTok and looking at all the other Instagram and all the other host of things that are out there to get their attention. Don't let the distractions keep them from learning. But on the other hand, if you got a child that seems to be key on how to fix these devices, how to promote these devices, how to deal with that, then encourage them to use their mind to be able to make the next generation of these high potent devices functional and even better. So thank you again for tuning in, and we look forward to you all coming back again next week. We're wrapping up the summer, getting closer and closer to getting back in school at every level. So whether it's returning back to secondary, post-secondary, college, grad school, professional school, or a host of other schools that you may be choosing to attend, again, continue to allow learning to be the difference maker, not only in your life, but the impact that it will have throughout this country, throughout this world. This is The Judge Speaks. Hubert Grimes signing off for today. Looking forward to being back with you again next week. Until then, be blessed.
Attention parents and kids. For the summer, Mount Bethel Baptist Institutional Church is serving up free lunch meals for all kids and teens age 18 and under. Stop by Mount Bethel Baptist Institutional Church